Okay, so it's that gameplay, social interaction is an important aspect of it. Now this happens along a timeline, you know, so you're continuously changing the state of the board again and again and again, and finally there is a winner. Now social interaction is often not really, it should not be underestimated, it's often underestimated. Okay, then engaging in gameplay, first thing that's important is that there has to be maintain an equal chance of winning for all players as long as possible. Now first part is fine, but making it as long as possible is the most difficult thing. Okay, how do I maintain the chance so that throughout I have enough chance of winning? And I'll show you examples of how cricket does it very well. Okay, so every move, the greater the number of meaningful or equally probable choices to the player, the greater is the unpredictability. Okay, it's important to use information theory to understand games. I think that's one very nice way of understanding game, is to see how unpredictability is managed along the timeline. Okay, so player must succeed in creating and maintaining this uncertainty throughout, and they go out of the way to do that. Now there are two kinds of two levels at which it happens. One is an intermediate level, where every move you create an uncertainty. You create an unpredictable move by which you spoil the plan of action of your opponent. He has already got a nice idea saying my next 5 moves are going to be this, and I create a move by which he has to suddenly change everything, and that's exactly how the unpredictable is created. Great players discover and select, that's why they are called creative. They discover new moves. I don't know whether you heard about Vishwanath Anand. When he played with the computer recently, he created an extremely unusual opening, which actually foxed the computer. So creating such unusual things is where the excellence of the player. Okay, and that's where the moves have surprise. There is a wow factor. No? If you're playing a chess, somebody comes out with a move and everybody says, "Wow, what is that?" Which is something which is not expected. And that's where he excelled. And final action is where another uncertainty comes in. So somebody has to win. There's one great game in this world where nobody wins, and that is Test cricket. Okay, it can end in a draw, but I don't think there are many other games which end in a draw. Okay, so there is no game if everyone knows who is certain to win. You will never play that game if you know that your opponent is going to win anyway. Okay, so you have to maintain that uncertainty throughout in order that you are able to catch his attention and get him. So finally it's like Oscar award, no? The winner is, and you don't know till the game is over. That's what it is. Is it possible to model that uncertainty? Look at a test match with the first day, second day, third day, fourth day. Actually first few days nobody watches. Okay, it's on the last day, particularly in the afternoon, that people start looking at television, you know, what is happening. That's because that's where some unpredictable things are likely to happen. Okay, even there they give up. If there is likely to be a draw, then they simply give it up. Look at 2020. This is what happens in 2020. You know, all the time you don't know who is going to win. Yeah, somewhere around the 10th over, you know that looks like this country is going to win, and suddenly the things change. You know, because there's suddenly 3-4 wickets that fall, and then you start the tension all over again. Snakes and ladder also maintains uncertainty very well. Okay, because you might get a number and you just simply have to come down. You know, the children may cheat and say, no, I don't want to come down, but the snake tells you that you have to come down. Right? And as you go closer to 100, there are bigger and longer snakes. Okay, that ensures that you sort of fall down quite a bit. I don't know, I couldn't get a picture of Jenga, but Jenga is an extremely interesting game which Fun School produces, which maintains uncertainty in a very different way. You know, as you go playing, the uncertainty increases more and more, and there is that last moment where everything falls down. Yeah? It's an excellent game with very few rules. Uncertainty is important everywhere, including gambling. Look at their faces.
Sure.
Will make us increase that uncertainty by adding that time. No gambling will be possible if there is no uncertainty and there are no games. Okay. How else do you create uncertainty? A very simple way of doing it is dice is one way. Second is of course roulette, I mean the wheel, or you shuffle a card. That basically creates uncertainty because you don't know what you are going to get. Okay. Other ways of doing it is you can create a deliberate noise in a message. Okay. For instance, there is a new game that Fun School will bring in future, where you code your message in such a way that it requires certain sort of a decoding process that you know and you share with your partner, and that's how you can win. Okay, so it's something like what happens in crossword puzzle. Crossword puzzle is not a game. You sort of the clues are such that it requires certain thinking to solve that problem. Okay, the game Gotcha, which is already in the market, which has got a legal mischief as one way of handling that imperfect information. You can hide cards. You can do so many things by which you can create uncertainty. So these two, failing which, there are external factors which are used to create uncertainty. One of them is time. You give a time limit. No? For instance, chess, you have to finish so many moves within that particular time, or a rapid chase. That's one way of creating uncertainty. Or you can create artificial thing like a power play in 2020. The captain can decide when he wants to make his power play, and that creates an uncertainty because the other person is kept guessing. Or you just simply match the players, which is the most common thing to do. No? You have grandmasters and you have chess A level players and B level players and things like that. Now you can create uncertainty only if two players match their abilities. Otherwise, that uncertainty is not possible. Otherwise, the people give handicaps. So finally, players play a key role. His actions create what one calls as a turning point. In fact, after cricket match, there is always those turning points which are given by a commentator with a flashback of all the things. That is the time when the match turned. Now, the fact that it turned means there was an uncertainty there. Right? His motivation to fight and win makes a difference. It could be for fame, it could be prize, money, whatever that involved. So you only design the game world in which things happen. Meaningful choices of moves are left to the players and their abilities. What they do with it is something which is left to them. And that's the reason why we discuss players. Tendulkar or Yuvraj Singh. Everybody remembers 6 sixes of Yuvraj Singh. Most unexpected to have happened, and probably it happened only once in the entire cricket world, or I don't know. Yeah? Or Vishwanath Anand's moves. No. Lastly, is it possible to become an expert player? Now, what is it that makes an expert player? There are some games where it is possible, some games where it is not. You can become an expert if it uses meaningful opportunities to exercise a mental skill or a mental faculty, or skill that is something like cricket or any of the, I mean, I'm talking about combination of this, and are not luck based. Okay? A luck based game will have less use of, for instance, snakes and ladder is completely luck based. It doesn't require skill, it doesn't require mental. That doesn't mean they are not necessary, they are required. Till the mental faculties and skills develop, luck based serve as a good starting point. Okay, there is a need to initiate children into playing game. So luck based games like snakes and ladders and ludos are important, because that's exactly how children will get into the whole idea of game. So snakes and ladder is one example of it. Okay. So snakes and ladder says many things with games. It has excellent uncertainty. It's enjoyed by children, smaller children. It engages them quite a bit. Then why is that snake and ladder is not a game? It's not a game. There's several things why it is so. First is, if you go by the definition of it, my action does not affect my opponent in any way. I am continuing my 100 and he is continuing his 100, whoever comes first. So it's actually a race. It's not a game. There is no role for mental faculty or skills. So there cannot be an expert in snakes and ladders. Nobody can become an expert in snakes and ladders, right? So you can see the relationship between uncertainty, problem solving, expertise, mental faculties, skills, and luck. And that's why two grown-ups will never play this. Because it's completely, unless you're traveling in train or something like that, we prefer to play with a child. So that brings us to the last part of it. Uncertainty, games and learning. My interest in the game started with the potential in learning. I was quite fired by the idea in 70s saying that I want to change the world with games and I want to do all educational aids which will make people happy and they will learn things and all that. Is there a change in that position? And lastly, are educational games possible at all? Or is it just a favorite idea of adults, saying I want to do educational games, so I'm doing educational games. So let's look at this possibility. Managing uncertainty and learning do not often go together. There's a conflict built into that. That is the biggest problem with educational games. Uncertainty is not necessarily conducive to learning. Okay, you need more structured approach for learning. You need, because you want to pass on the message, etc., etc. And handling uncertainty can actually overpower learning. These are the things that can happen. So that goes against it. But don't give up now. Unless you use to promote learning, so it's quite possible to develop a game which has uncertainty, but uncertainty itself is used to promote learning. If that happens, then it is possible that educational games can equally be exciting. Okay. Remember, we started with the first game that was something to do with the message, developing the whole rural areas using games, right? Now, that did not have sufficient uncertainty to play. Okay. Now, unless you match these two and create a message which, through the route of uncertainty, I am able to pass on, it's impossible to do good educational game. They will remain educational game, they will remain favorites of parents, but children may not play it. In order that children play it, it's important that the uncertainty is a route towards education. It's quite a difficult challenge, but it's worth it. Thank you.
Thank you for
Can we turn the lights on, please?
There's one more mic somewhere. Yeah, it's here. No. Both of them? Huh.
I think maybe a concern. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for a great talk. It was really stimulating. So I'm really interested in your conclusion. And basically it seems like the activity of designing a game seems like it could be a great learning activity just from what you showed in the videotape, because it gets at all the things that a child basically experiences in a day and their surroundings and what they find interesting.
That's right. Was there a question in that? No, it's just a comment.
No, I was
No, because everybody is quiet, so they sort of replied.
I have a question to ask.
Yeah.
it's okay. You can
We
speak
have
loud.
no, my voice is loud. You see, we have seen so many games in the rural area which do not use any kind of gadgets, or they just use simple things available locally. But I have a question. Who do you think has devised that game? I mean, I think children, but what do you?
Frankly, I do not know the answer for the second one. who did those games. But the first one is correct. I actually maintain that hardware is the least important part of the game at all. Yeah? Children play games with stones. Whatever that's available to them, that's good enough play. If you have a game play, hardware doesn't matter. What is important is to get a great gameplay. Now, who designed traditional games, I don't know. There's some wonderful games which are there, which are very good. We have a collection of games, by the way.
Do you think the new games which are being developed are basically just permutation combinations of existing games?
Not necessarily. Some of them are. See, it's a lot easier for you to slightly revise that game. Okay, I didn't mention that because we had limited time. See, when you have a theme-based game, it's very easy to change the theme and the concept remains same. The gameplay remains same. For instance, Monopoly can be changed into industry and things like that. That's not a big deal at all. So you can create about 100 games based on that. But that's not really designing a gameplay. That's just making variations in the same game and all. So what you're saying is right, that a lot of games are just variations of. In fact, enormous number of variations of Monopoly are available world over, with slight modifications here. In fact, what we do in our elective is teach game design. We ask them to redesign a game. You take an existing game, study it, and redesign that game. That helps a lot. And we can tell them, look, you need to make it more exciting, or reduce the excitement. Some goal you put and redesign the game. That's a good way of starting. Maybe we should. Others will not.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What happened today, when a child comes to a store, he will choose a computer game or he'll choose a game?
Okay. In India, they will choose television. Okay. We did a very serious study of what do children do from morning to night, after they get up and after they sort of go to sleep till that time. We have 2 reports of doing it in bigger cities and some kind of small towns. Right? It's interesting to see their map. Almost all of them are kept busy by their parents. First is that they come from school, then they have to go to some class, either a dance class or a drawing class or something like that. Then they go and learn some foreign language somewhere, right? And then they come home by about 6 o'clock. None of them have energy to do anything except to switch on a TV. So our major competition to game is television. Right? Second is between computers and these games. They are not really comparable because the social process that I showed you does not happen in a computer game at all. So that's where they have a limitation. Okay? They are exciting, but they're not all that good. Second is, one of my students was working on a game and I told him that compare 2 kinds of computer game. One is the Sim City, which requires thinking. Other one is the one where you shoot and catch something and things like that. So most of the children told him, and not the children but also IIT students, that Sim City, it requires too much thinking, I don't want it. It's much better to have something which doesn't require thinking at all. Okay, that was his conclusion. So it looks like the less thinking the game is, the better it is likely to be in terms of popularity. But a good game and a popular game are 2 different things. Zynga is a good game, but I'm not sure about its popularity.
Gameplay determines development of game. Because of the difference in cognitive development, are games very different for adults and children?
Yes. Actually, children go through such rapid development during the early time, from 6 years to say 16 years, that a game which is suitable for 6 and 7 year old, no grown-up will ever play. Typically at that age group, it is good to use things like snakes and ladders which are luck based, because you have to initiate them into playing a game. See, game is a social process, so they have to understand, they have to follow the rule, they have to sort of interact with each other, and there is certain discipline that they have to follow. So for that, these games are very good. After that, the kind of games that you can handle keep changing with age group. Okay? The more problem solving or mental skill faculties will come in when you go towards 12 and all. I'll give you a concrete example of those puzzles, which I showed you. You can do it mentally. They cannot be handled by anybody less than 6th standard. It requires too much of concentration and too much of mental action that they cannot handle it. They cannot concentrate for that longer time. Okay, but from 6th standard to about 9th standard, they work very effectively. Now, why they don't work in 10th and 11th standard is a very different reason. That's an Indian reason. Okay, that nobody wants to play anything if it is not going to contribute to their scores. Okay, so we saw a sudden drop in their performance in 10th standard. So up to 9th standard they were very good, and 10th standard it comes down. That's because the parent pressure is so much. It's all seen as a waste of time. So. Yeah.
What about gender preferences or in games?
Yeah.
What have you noticed in the years that you've been involved?
When we did that survey, we found that boys wanted to play outdoor games, more action-oriented games, rather than board games. Girls wanted to play board games at home. Probably it's because our parents sort of insist, you don't go out, it's good to play at home or whatever that is. So gender preferences may not necessarily come from differences in the gender, but just because the way parents treat their children. It's a social issue also. We don't know, we're not investigated that. But girls are willing to play board games more easily and quickly than boys. Interesting part about it is that there are no games which are designed for girls separately, which takes care of their interest. And I've been telling my elective students who are girls to do this, and they've never done it. I don't know why. They're all smiling, but didn't I tell you? But they don't seem to be doing it.
Maybe because it's a man's world.
But it would be nice to look at that as a kind of a different issue altogether.
Look the problem in an equal level. Girls are not accepting.
Maybe. You can ask them. They're sitting in front of you.
So there is in fact one game for girls. It's called Mall Madness. It's a shopping game.
Okay. This one, yeah.
You kept mentioning sports and board games in the same breath in quite a few slides. I was wondering if you could discuss the differences between both beyond those obvious ones such as action and
Yeah. Actually, they're same.
I'm sorry?
They're same.
Right.
It's the gameplay that's important. If it's a good gameplay, whether it is an outdoor game or an indoor game, whether it's a sports or not. But there are some differences. The level of skill that is expected in sports like games,
I'm sorry?
in games like cricket or football, is far higher than in the board game.
Right.
And that is the reason it takes so much time for you to really understand how to play that game, because you need so much of control. The time available for perception is very small. Just imagine in a tennis, you just forget tennis. Tennis is a little slower. Take a look at table tennis. By the time you just have to be there before the ball comes in. So those faculties are far more exercised in sports like games than in board games. Board games tend to be much slower, and there's more mental faculty that is involved in that.
But coordination of senses are equally. It is in every game. Coordination of senses increases.
Yeah.
Helps.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying they're competing with each other. They're different classes of games. That's why I said mental faculty and skills. These two are important. Some games have more skills, some games have more mental faculty. Chess has more mental faculty, completely mental faculty.
One more question.
Yeah.
I come from Hong Kong, where a lot of students I work with insist on developing ideas for play that would involve both children and their parents. Now, you also repeatedly suggested that games children will play would not be games necessarily that adults would play. So, what would be characteristics, in your opinion?
No, you're talking about parents
games
playing with their children or adults?
Intergenerational games.
Intergeneration games. Okay.
What characteristics?
Yeah. The reason why we haven't looked at it so far is not very fashionable in India. Okay, parents don't seem to play with children. Either they watch TV or children watch TV. One of the two things happen.
All right. So, what kind of show do they watch together?
So that is one. But it is possible to develop games of that kind. In fact, there will be a lot more disciplined kind of games, because parents will be able to sort of fighting and things like that. So that way it is fine. There is also a good market for games for old people.
What do you mean by old people?
Old people means above 60, 65. There's a big market for it. We haven't tapped it. We haven't looked at that market at all. Yeah.
Add to one thing too, I've heard of a number of projects in the United States now about intergenerational games, but not parents and children, but grandparents and children.
Yeah.
And one way to do that is actually using technology. If the grandparents aren't living near their grandchildren and they want to be in touch with them, they can play a game together online. And that way you have this intergenerational gameplay, but that's not location-based. So that's also something to think about when you're talking about intergenerational.
That's a good observation, because in India, extended families are common. Except that grandparents would like children to play the games that they played when they were young. Typically they do not have the patience to learn new games.
So maybe can we, we can late. So what I would request is, maybe the last question.
I'm interested if your research is specific to Indian children or if it applies to the larger world. And I'm interested in why you're developing these physical aspects of games rather than computer games that would address the same kinds of issues.
Okay. Yeah. First is it's specific to India. That's one. So it's not that computer games are not available, but as I told you that games are designer driven. I don't like computer games. Simple. Okay. And that's the reason I haven't gone into it, because there's no social interaction there at all.
Oh, of course there is. The multiplayer games, that's the main thing. This is why they play. I had a child that for 3 years nearly didn't sleep because he had to be online all the time because people talk to him.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of social interaction.
No,
That's
I know
the
that, but I'm not talking about that kind. You saw the kind of social interaction, that's physical social interaction. That does not happen in those games. No, you still don't know who you're playing with. So, no, I mean, in the sense that it is not the same. You cannot replicate this on a computer at all. If you show you the full play session, you realize what children do to each other.
Okay, I'm talking about real-time online multiplayer games like World of Warcraft, which I'm sure you don't like, neither do I, but kids do.
Maybe.
So I studied these games with my students. They like to write their thesis on this type of games because typically boys, because they play a lot and So
yeah, maybe.
This is a phenomenon.
Yeah.
They
But
like this.
I have
like to make a
rather
comment.
looked at it this way.
I just wanted to make a comment on this. I mean, consider the fact that we have to travel and meet here instead of having a conference on a screen. I mean, there's a big difference, and there you have it. That's the difference between an online game and a board game.
Yeah, same difference.
Right here, I can do this.
Different virtual methods of doing that.
See, again, I'm going to stop it. I know you don't need to ask many more questions. So suggestion is that we can go down, have some snacks, and you still can talk to Prasad Swankar. Thanks a lot. Thanks to Prasad Swankar.
Thank you.
Couple of announcements. Please stay back. Kids are there to do a ballet, so that's going to start immediately. And we meet here tomorrow morning at 9:30. Yeah. Bye.